Well, hello, econ students. Welcome to week week 7 of Exploring Economics. In this short little video, I'm just going to kind of give you an overview of what we would have covered in class this week. And then you have some videos that I'd like you to watch. And I've also included 2 worksheets that go along with the videos. But when we get to those slides, I'll explain a little bit more in depth. You can just turn your homework in next week when you get to class, so don't worry about that right now. So here we go. So this week in week 7 in your reading, you're going to be looking at policies. So you're going to be getting kind of an overview of some of the policies that have been put in place primarily in America by our government. So our government has put regulations and policies in place in order to kind of protect our workers, but also to help provide services and goods for our people. So some of the policies have to do with infrastructure, so roads and schools, bridges, all those kinds of things that kind of make our society work. Okay, so they've put policies in place regarding those things. They've also put policies in place regarding education. Okay, not only requirements and policies regarding who gets educated, but how they get educated and who is qualified to educate them. Okay, we also have policies regarding healthcare. So the government has provided healthcare to its citizens on some level for quite a long time. Primarily now that comes in the form of things like Medicare for older senior citizens and Medicaid for people who are in a certain income bracket that aren't able to provide health care for themselves. Okay, you're also going to talk and look at regulations and some of the organizations that provide those regulations and also enforce them. So you'll be introduced to the Food and Drug Administration, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, also known as OSHA, and we'll be looking at just the question of whether or not the government should play as big of a role as they do in providing some of these regulations, and what would it look like if individuals and individual companies were allowed to regulate themselves, and what might happen. Okay, so that's one of the chapters you're going to be looking at. We're also going to be talking about taxes. We're going to be looking at specifically what taxes are, where did they come from, why do we have them, what role do they play in our society, and you're going to watch a short video about that this week as well. There's not a worksheet to go along with that one, but it's just kind of, again, just a general overview of what taxes are, what purpose do they serve, and do they do a good job of serving that purpose. Okay. We're also going to talk about income, which means that we'll be talking about income distribution and jobs, and the argument about minimum wage. That has long been an argument in our society, whether or not there should be a minimum wage, what the minimum wage should be, and that argument continues even today. So you're going to watch a video about that and complete a worksheet, just kind of comparing and contrasting the two different sides. And then I want you to be thinking about kind of your own opinion. So what do you think about the two sides that were presented, and what are your thoughts? So there'll be a place on the worksheet for you to complete that as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit more next week in class. And then finally, we're going to talk about government agencies and departments. So we're going to look at Congress, the president and his staff, who play a role in governing us, obviously, but also in setting up some of the government agencies and departments that provide other resources for us. So we'll look at the Treasury Department, and also there's the Agricultural Department, Commerce Department, Energy, Health and Human Services, Housing and Urban Development, Labor, the State Bureau of Economic and Business Affairs, Transportation, independent agencies of all sorts. So be thinking about whether or not these agencies can all be effective at doing what it is they have set out to do, and how has that changed over time? Obviously, when these agencies were put into place, someone saw a need and felt that these agencies were the best way to fill that need. But how has that changed over time? And are there certain agencies and departments that maybe are no longer effective at doing what they're supposed to be doing? And how do we deal with that? Okay. So the policy of providing public goods and services, that's kind of what the government has set forth. They've said that there are some certain goods and services that individual companies can't necessarily provide as adequately as the government can. A couple of those areas are security. So obviously they provide for our national defense. They provide law enforcement, things like firefighting, EMTs, all of those kinds of things. They provide those things for us. And then infrastructure. So they help maintain our road system, all of our transportation systems. So roads, trains, travel by water, all of those kinds of things. They make sure that they are maintained and updated when they need to be updated. If new roads need to be built, they make sure that they're built to the best possible standards. And then again, education. So they are in charge of providing public education for our citizens. And then healthcare, Medicare and Medicaid. Okay. And actually in the realm of healthcare, that is actually morphed into, since our book was written, or I guess it was in the process of when our book was being published, was the whole idea of what was called then Obamacare and is now, I think, being referred to as Biden care, but the government kind of stepping in and helping to kind of provide more healthcare options for our citizens, and the argument of whether or not they're doing a good job of that or not, and is there a better way? Okay. In a quote from your book, wealth is distributed unevenly among the American people. And I think we can see that, obviously. There are people who obviously have more wealth than they could ever spend. And there are people who have just barely enough, or not even enough, really, for their daily needs. And so why is that? Okay. And the government's attempt to remedy that is by generating tax revenue and distributing that to people who need assistance. Okay. And the way they generate that income is through taxes. So taxes are an additional cost on goods and services that's not related to the cost of the product and its distribution. Taxes, as we know, have existed since very early beginnings of history. We even see in the Bible, Jesus spoke about taxes. And he said, give to Caesar what is due Caesar. In other words, pay your taxes. And we also see in Scripture that, even in those days, the system of taxation was being abused. And we saw that, people who were designated as tax collectors were not very popular people because they were often charging people more than what they were supposed to be and, pocketing the difference. And so they weren't being honest. And people, didn't appreciate that. The primary purpose of taxes is to generate income for the government. And then, like we said, they use some of that income to help those they deem worthy of needing assistance. Okay. So the first video that you're going to watch is called just Crash Course Economics. It's a brief overview of taxes. And like I said, there's no worksheet that goes with that one. I just want you to watch it and take in the information. The next video is called Your Tax Dollars at Work. And there is a worksheet that goes along with that one. You'll see on that one, there's a little pie graph. Do your best. It doesn't have to be beautiful. I just wanted you to kind of get an idea of where all of the tax dollars are going and kind of the percentages, just to kind of give you an idea. And then finally, should we raise the minimum wage? So again, this one has a worksheet that goes with it. There are just some questions that I want you to think about as you're watching the video. What are the arguments that support an increase in the minimum wage? What are the arguments against an increase? And then what are the arguments in support of and against an increase? And what is your opinion? Okay, that's the most important one I want you to focus on. What is your opinion after you've watched this? And obviously you probably already maybe have thought about this issue before. But I want you to share with us, what is your actual opinion about this and why? And what do you think, how do you think raising the minimum wage would ultimately affect our economy? Okay. So that's your assignment for this week in terms of an actual class assignment. Your homework is to read lessons 49, 51, and 55 in your syllabus, complete week 7 questions, and then I want you to study for quiz number 2. Now, obviously, you're going to need the homework questions that you turned in to me last week in order to study for your quiz. So I will send you the answers to those. So even though you won't have your actual answers that you put, you'll at least have the correct answers to study, okay? Because this quiz is going to cover, let me check so I can tell you the right answer here. It's going to cover weeks 4, 5, and 6, okay? So you're going to need the answers to those homework questions. So like I said, I will send those to you. I'll send you the correct answers so you have them to study. And just like last time, if you study the answers on your homework, you should do fine. I may even set up a little quizzes to help you study. If I do, I'll send you the link for that. But other than that, I think that's all we have. Those are the main things for this week. You may have noticed in the syllabus, it said that there was an article for you to read. I wanted you to read the article that I gave you on capitalism in place of that article. It said you're supposed to read Socialism, Free Enterprise, and the Common Good. Well, I gave you that article about capitalism. I wanted you to read that one instead. So in case there was a question about that, I wanted to clarify. Yeah, otherwise, I think that is all. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to send me a message, and I will do my best to get back to you quickly. Again, sorry we couldn't meet in person this week, but we will be back in person next week with our quiz number 2 and a discussion about some of the things that you covered this week, and then we'll be moving on to week 8, okay? All right, I hope you all have a great week, and I will see you soon.